Hello and welcome. If there's anything that you'll take out of this podcast, if there is one thing that you'll take out of this podcast, let it be this. Cybersecurity has transformed from a nice to have to becoming an audit mandate and now becoming a way of work. I'd like to say even a way of life. Cybersecurity isn't just for the Fortune 500 companies. It's for every single organization which has data and people and processes to protect. In my opinion, that should be everybody. Now, this podcast is for you who is the decision maker, whether it's a management, C-suite, executive board member, or even a founder of a company. You who drives the mission and vision of an organization. One person said to me that cybersecurity isn't just about tools and technology. Cybersecurity is about trust. Trust that you are able to keep your clients' data safe. And with that trust brings more revenue. And those are the numbers that people want to know. Welcome. My name is Denzel, an MXDR manager, and this is the Nedscaper Podcast. A podcast which is there to explore cybersecurity in the lens of leadership, strategy, and innovation. And today, in studio, I have the greatest minds, specialists, thought leaders of cybersecurity who will lead us and direct us and guide us in this topic. Here in studio, I have got a man who has worked in software development for a very long time in great corporations such as Investec. A man who is now currently head of IT at Redefine Properties. Now, I want you to think about this. Redefine Properties is a real estate investment trust with over 100 billion rands of property assets. And this man has got the whole IT infrastructure on his shoulder. And in studio, we've got Obey Makuvele. Obey, welcome to studio.
Thank you, Denzel. Lovely joining you here. Looking forward to the interaction.
Awesome, great. And we have got somebody else who is a inspiration to many, a leader, a woman who has driven so much motivation and encouragement to so many other women in cybersecurity. I mean, in information technology in general. She is the president of Women in Cybersecurity, a 2-time group CISO, big corporations such as Old Mutual and Vodacom. And she is currently Microsoft Chief Security Advisor for the whole of Africa. And she's joining in online all the way from Cape Town. We've got Carissa Varma. Carissa, welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So all of us, are we excited to be here in studio? Now, to kick it off, I just want to give in something to people who are joining in right now. And we'll be talking mainly about MXDR. MXDR is a service and how it provides so much value and how it will help to stop certain threats, cybersecurity threats mainly. And I want to start with you, Obey, to just give me, in general, on your understanding and the importance of MXDR as a service, or even cybersecurity as a service in general.
Yeah. Cool. Great question, Denzel. What MXDR means to me, to us at Redefine, it's basically it's a way of life, right? Yeah. It's how we do business, technically. So without MXDR, or in a sense, managed extended defense and response capabilities, we're not able to run our business in this digital landscape where it's all in the internet. We do everything online. It's remote work. It's the world of AI. We do believe that MXDR capabilities and services are no longer an option. It's basically a baseline, right? That's the minimum you need to have. So in our context, basically, it's mainly about protecting our assets, right? Not in the form of spaces, but again, our IQ, our IP, our data systems, as well as our processes, like you already alluded. So that's what it is. It's about creating that trust at all levels.
And I totally agree with what you just said. To say that is about creating trust.
Sure.
And this is something that I've heard you, Carissa, actually say in one of your posts, to say that cybersecurity resilience is all about trust.
Yeah.
And I want to look into something that you once said, right? It's a post from your LinkedIn. I'm going to read it. You said cybersecurity can help build your business and your brand. And then towards the end, you said cybersecurity is ultimately about building customer trust. Please tell me more about what that means, building that trust.
So if you think about businesses today, like you said earlier, I mean, we're all operating online. We have all of our data and systems, and shareholders are looking at businesses big and small, as well as investors are looking at businesses big and small to determine where should they put their money. And investors have always done risk assessments on organizations to say, which is the best organization to invest my money? Now, if you think about a completely digital business, an online business, and so many of us are online, so many of us have capabilities that are, stored data somewhere that needs protecting. That risk assessment by analysts, by investors is increasingly looking at cybersecurity. You can imagine that if you have a single breach or a single incident that wipes out a business for multiple days, and we've seen this, we've seen it in South Africa, we've seen it globally. So if we look at what happened at our ports, with Transnet's breach a few years ago, if we look at what happened with the retailers in the UK, this is money out the door. And it's really interesting because the competitive edge that cybersecurity gives you is that if you are investing in cybersecurity and you have a stronger resilience and a stronger posture than your competition, when that day happens, when an attacker attacks your industry, and like the retailers in the UK, they were all attacked, but they fared differently. So some people were able to come up really quickly because their posture and resilience was better, and others were down for days. So it is a strategic advantage. It is a business prerogative because we are all operating online and we need to protect shareholder value. We need to make sure that our business is ready for future investment to grow. And that's why I completely see it as a strategic advantage.
Yeah. I mean, Ope, if you feel like you want to come in, just come in and stop me whenever you feel like
100%.
Yeah. Just speaking on what you said, now looking into more finance, this is something that we have seen in recent years in South Africa or globally, to see that there's been a rising increase on the cost of cyber attacks. And it's not just about IT disruption.
Correct.
Reputational damage, even shareholder confidence.
Yes.
Now, if a organization has been disrupted to such a level, I think it makes sense for us, especially for leaders in cybersecurity, for them to put a microscope into such things.
Sure. Yeah.
Let me give you an example of something which is happening recently. Ransomware as a service. Ransomware on its own is terrible. But now, because of AI and how the threat landscape has evolved, they've made ransomware as a service.
Correct.
They have lowered the bar for cyber attacks to come.
Of course.
For attackers to enter into different companies. Now, because of that, it now takes for people like you, people like CFOs, people like CISOs to look into probably what then is the actual cost and implication of cyber attacks. Now, the question that I want to pose to you from your perspective, what are the biggest concerns for your executive team when it comes to cyber attacks? I mean, this is something that you were just telling me earlier on that, you joined the Manco and you were part of the executive team meetings.
Yes.
And of course, they have an idea of what it means on their end as a cybersecurity attack and business disruption.
Yes.
From your perspective, what is their biggest concern when it comes to cybersecurity?
Yeah. So look, we've already touched on it, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically three things. One being the financial exposures, right? Followed by a disruption to business, right, to operations, as well as trust. Again, you don't want to be seen as an organization that does not care about its customer information. its reputation and the like. So surely those three aspects for us are what really keeps us awake at night. And again, we don't want to be vulnerable to these exposures, especially when you look at our financial platforms as well as how we do business in general with our tenants, right? You can see we've seen a growth in scams and fish, such as your change in banking details. So those are basically things that we have to deal with. And how do we again bring the awareness back to not just internally, but to our tenants as well as our suppliers? So those three themes would be what literally the things that we talk about all the time.
Yeah, and I think when we look into the aspect of looking into our clients and probably a lot of different companies and organizations, there has been a rise ever since COVID-19 hit. Yeah. There's been a rise in people working remotely.
Sure, yes.
And because of that, the rise of people working remotely, there's also been a rise in separate different cybersecurity threats.
Sure. Yeah.
You feel like we opened a can of worms. As much as there's been a good in people working remotely, I mean, that's debatable. Some people, think differently. We can sit in a room with people and they might think that working remotely is not good. Like, hey, no, people must come back to the office. But that's a different understanding when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yes.
Especially now with people working remotely, we see a lot of what we call insider threats or insider risks.
Yes.
It could be a couple of things, right? A disgruntled employee leaking sensitive financial data to competitors.
Yes.
It could be an employee accidentally sharing confidential files via the personal email.
Sure.
It could be even clicking on phishing links disguised as internal communications. The list goes on and on and on. For security teams, the challenge isn't just visibility, but it's proactive protection.
Yes.
Looking into the environment, I'm sure you have seen this, and I think you, Carisi, as well, have seen this as you spoke to different CISOs. What do you think was the greatest challenge with people moving into a remote work setup, especially with regards to security? Is that a challenge that a lot of CISOs facing and they bring to the table and they say, we want people to work remotely, but at the same time, there's a risk in cybersecurity, there's a risk in insider threats, in other words. So in your words, what do you think is the greatest challenge that you've seen in your experience and the experience of other people, cybersecurity leaders as well?
Do you want me to take that one?
Yep.
So I think remote working has just exacerbated risks that already existed before remote working. We didn't really have a good control over data. We didn't have good control over identities, how people were logging in, what they were doing. There was no good conditional access, meaning, depending on what you're doing and what you're accessing, we limit the amount of access you have or we increase our security controls. So all of that was fundamental issues before remote working. Remote working just made those issues more prominent and brought them to the fore. And I think insider risk, my perspective on insider risk is, while remote working is, has definitely increased the occurrence of insider risk threats. The other aspect to it is, if you look at what's happening to most people in South Africa from an economic perspective, a lot of people have less disposable income in their accounts. And so the propensity for fraud, the propensity for someone to, maybe break a rule that they wouldn't be willing to break prior, too many years ago, I think that propensity is higher. So if you take the combination of, staff really being cash strapped, fraud syndicates, targeting employees, as well as the fact that, staff may just operate in a way that they don't know how things work, the entire pot of insider risk is quite high at the moment, and remote working makes that worse.
Yeah, 100%. And just to add to that, if you look at the distance between your organizational policy and the employee who are working remotely
on the ground,
you will appreciate that there would be some level of disengagement, basically, from the policies themselves, right? And compliance, not to leave that.
Yeah.
So people are now using their personal devices now to access data platforms remotely. So that on its own does increase the attack surface, which makes it even tougher for organizations to manage. That's why you need to now look at how you increase your level of coverage when it comes to responding, monitoring, as well as detecting anomalies. And that's where we look at opportunities that come with your AI and the likes. So yes, as much as it was well received and welcomed by a vast majority of people at workplace, it did pose great challenges for CISOs and security teams in general. So that's something to also, highlight.
Yeah, and I thank you for saying that, and thank you for that contribution as well, Carissa. There's something that I also want to bring to the table to say that now with this threat landscape, the surface attack growing, attack surface growing, what then? Let's now come back to MXDR.
Correct.
Let's now come back to that 24/7 service. Let's come back to that human touch, a person being always, the analyst calls their job, they say eyes on the glass.
Of course.
The first responders, the first line of defense.
Yes.
Now, how important then is their role in having a good coverage of all these different security threats? Now, I think we've spoken to say that, listen, remote work is here to stay. People follow the BYOD,
of course.
Sometimes not. How then can you, maybe from your experience, how have you seen that the MXDR service, that 24/7 watch, that the SOC always being monitoring your IT infrastructure, how have you seen that being such a great help, a massive help?
Yeah. So in our context, so how it has contributed positively in our space is that we are in a distributed work model, right? We have people internationally distributed across different provinces in South Africa. So it's very, very tough for my team to basically look at everybody on a daily basis, track behavior, and the likes. So how MXDR has really been a game changer for Redefine has been the fact that they basically have this pane of glass view, or a 360 view of our organizations, our people, our data, our applications, and they now able to not just see what is happening from a threat landscape point of view, but they're able to now proactively respond to attacks. And half the things that they do, we don't even get to hear about, to be honest. It's when we have our tacticals that I'm like, oh, damn, crazy. We just prevented a massive credential harvesting attack, So there are things like that you literally appreciate. And now, instead of from over and above your traditional way of doing cybersecurity, which is more of a defense approach, now we're looking at how we can, again, to Sarisha's earlier point, how do we create guard controls around resilience more than just defending, because it's who can literally get the systems back up quicker than being attacked, because best believe it's not a matter of whether you will, it's just a matter of time. So everyone is at risk of being attacked, so you just need to make sure that you have all the right kind of controls, and MXDR is exactly what you need to try cap some of these challenges that you see on the global landscape.
Carissa, I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier on, really just segueing from what you said. Some leader, C-suite, executive board member, right now is struggling to get the buy-in of the rest of the board members to get funds out to do more for cybersecurity. And it's such a difficult conversation that we've seen so many times. And I believe you have been exposed to that a lot more. What tips and tricks can you give to people who are, for example, in Obey's shoes, who have to communicate directly to the executive board members to request more funds? I mean, cybersecurity, we don't want to lie, right? And put a bow tie in it as a number. If you take MXDR as a service as a number, it's up there. It's up there. We don't want to, make it pretty to say that, no, it's cheap. It's an investment. Hence we call it an investment, because it's a whole lot of money going in there. Yeah. Now, Carissa, to people who are in his shoes, who are trying to build more and get more secure, what tips and tricks or what conversation or how different methodologies and probably how they can get the buy-in of these executive board members?
So I'm going to answer that question in two ways. So to all the executives and board members that are listening to this, a quick story. So a few years ago, I was a CISO of a big organization. One of my partners had a breach. They didn't know that they had a breach. My systems picked up that they had a breach. I picked up the phone. I phoned the CEO. It was a small business. They were something like probably 100 staff, really tiny. And they were, he was completely shocked at what I was telling him. Their data had been stolen. It had been put on the dark web. And in that breach, some data of the organization that I had been working for was also leaked on the dark web. He put the phone down. He scrambled with his team. 3 weeks later, the CEO of my business sat down with the CEO of this third party, of this vendor, and they had a really difficult conversation. And an ultimatum was made. The vendor was told that if you do not take cybersecurity as seriously as we do, we will not do business with you. And so that CEO of that small business had to go and scramble. He had to invest a huge amount of money because he hadn't done so in the past. And the first point I'm making is that if you don't proactively invest in cybersecurity, it will come at the expense of your business when you lose a contract, when you lose a partnership with a big organization, when you lose investment, and then in a knee-jerk reaction, your investment in cybersecurity is going to be even more severe. So that proactive investment is really critical. So to all the executives out there, I know it's sort of like if the breach hasn't happened, you can put it, on the back burner and prioritize other things, but you're kicking a can down the road and making the problem worse for yourself in the long run. So really, really look to that investment and do it proactively and chunk it up in a way that your business can manage it. And then for everyone that is looking to negotiate investment or to talk to their exco or their business owner about why cybersecurity investment is important, I often say that when you paint a picture of what the risk is and what the challenges are, you can't ignore them. But oftentimes, CISOs, CIOs, we want to paint a pretty picture. We want to say, give us this money, we'll do this work, and then the risk will go away. And realistically speaking, risks evolve. So when you get that piece of work done, it's really difficult to go back and ask for the next piece of money because your exco and your board is saying, well, I invested, a year ago. Why do you need more money? So that conversation about the continual evolution of risks, the continual evolution of what the business is doing and where the business is operating and how you protect the business is really key. And I often say that if you look at cyber investment, together with the big programs of work you've got going on or the big business investments you're making, that's the right way to tackle it. What's the cost of actually implementing that? It should include the cyber investment.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as a technical person who has been exposed to things like risk assessments when we go into client environments, we go into a client's environment and then we do an assessment. Now, these are people who are being introduced into, what can I say, MXDR, right? And then what we do or what we find is most of the time is that we find a lot of things wrong. And most of the time it's because they don't know that things are wrong in their environment, right? And I think this is something which we'll speak about in our next episode when we speak about the different workshops which are there that we can give. I think Nedscaper, as an MSSP and a cybersecurity company, we have a partnership with Microsoft, and we're able to give workshops to companies, basically like a POV, a proof of value. I think things like that, being able to show the leaders that, listen, this is what has happened. I think the first step into the door is to work with companies like Nedscaper to get that POV out of the way, to see in actual fact what the value is of this MXDR service. But yet again, I digress. I want us to go into a different topic, a topic which, of course, has people's ears tingling a bit, which is AI, artificial intelligence, and mainly in the realm of deepfakes. I want to talk about this. I mean, it is part of cybersecurity, right? For people who are very technical, they can really look into it and say, I mean, deepfake is more of social engineering, you can use it for social engineering compared to being able to actively detect it. But now the thing is that when we don't speak on such things, we lack the ability to pull people in or to rope people into understanding cybersecurity, because deepfakes is what's trending. Yes. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence. Yes. And if you as an organization is not at the forefront of being able to understand what that is, when they ask the question, you should be at a point of saying something. I mean, creating ways or methods of detecting it. We can go down a rabbit hole, honestly. I'm a tech person. I can really go down deep into that rabbit hole. But what I want us to look into is how important it is, based on your perspective, Ope, I'm going to start with you, for your executive team to understand the risks posed by these kinds of attacks. Because we can find people being scammed, right? Which a scam is social engineering. You really sometimes can't really detect it on a SOC, or you can't detect it on your XDR system. But how important is it for you to have your executive team understand that there are these kind of trends, cybersecurity attacks happening? And I believe that it is of your own interest and interest of the company for you to understand these different things. Yes,
of course. If you look at AI, right? AI is a massive opportunity. It unlocks all certain level of juices, innovative juices. Yeah. People are now able to be more operationally efficient. But again, there comes a risk, right? Deepfakes. We all know of the story of one of the companies abroad that lost about $25 million because someone was trying to impersonate basically the CFO, right? Yeah. And people did fall for it because it was too real, right? Then again, yes, if you look at what threat actors now are doing when it comes to infiltrating companies, attacking companies, they're no longer sending phish emails because or trying to attack systems, because systems, we know systems are robust, and the shift now is completely moved from targeting platforms or systems to people, right? Because people are your weakest link, right? So yes, we've seen the trend, but to be honest with you, there's so much that one can do, right? Yes, we do have platforms. If you, I went to Microsoft Security Summit 2-3 weeks ago, where they were talking about how to defend against it's basically data security posture management for AI, right? So yes, we do have platforms, we do have channels we can use now to preach, but it's more about more awareness than anything right now. How do we drive a security first culture within the organizations, just to get not just the executive team, because yes, I know there's strong emphasis on the executive team, but you do want to get to the cleaner, you want to get to the guy on the ground to understand that, hey, you will on a random time get a call from a CEO who happens not to be the real CEO, right? And obviously, think of that vulnerable guy. In our context, it would be a handyman, a guy trying to fix windows in our properties, getting a call from someone who's posing as a CEO. The guy's surely gonna conform.
Exactly.
Right? So again, if you do not bring the awareness back to everyone in the organization, trust me, you're bound to be caught. Right? Because those are the people that have accesses. Those are the people that have privileged accesses. So things like your privileged management, multi-factor authentication, those now become what we call non-negotiables in a sense. Right? So adoption of zero trust architectures. Again, it's no longer a nice to have. It's something that has to be done. So a strong emphasis has to be put on people, not just on systems, to be honest. That's essentially how I personally feel we can curb some of these challenges. Because like Sarisa said earlier, it's not just trying to maintain the status quo, but these things are evolving all the time. So you need to evolve with it. Often you need to be proactive, right? That's why you need an MXDR partner who is more proactive, not just looking at your environment and just doing business as usual. They need to be challenged. They need to look out for opportunities. They need to go out there and understand what is happening around the world. That's essentially it.
Carissa, speaking on this, I see and feel a sense that there is a lot of importance attached to the decision makers, of course. However, as much as I think they are the big fish, right, for threat actors, we still have the people, as you mentioned, the gogo who's cleaning, that security guy who has access to the whole building. We have got people in HR who might not be the most tech-savvy people. Those are also the type of people that are being targeted. Now, which then brings us as the cybersecurity specialists, like yourself, like Carissa, to say, these are the measures that we need to put in place. But this is an old age fight between security and productivity. It's always, hey, this policy you're putting in, I can't work. My laptop isn't working anymore. I can't send emails. I can't download this file. And especially more for people now who work, remotely or in different places. They're using their own device, and now they complain to the IT team, to the service desk. Hey, service desk, my I can't sign into my laptop. It's saying that I am in, I'm not
Untrusted location.
Untrusted location. Untrusted location.
Yeah.
So now the question I want to pose, or a discussion that I want us to have, is then, how can we as leaders build a security-aware culture without making employees feel watched or distrusted or feel like this is a huge break in productivity or their work? What can we do to build that culture, Carissa?
So I think that, there's so much we can do, and there's so much that's been spoken about around security culture. For me, there's a couple of really critical things. I believe that security controls need to work in line with what a person is trying to achieve. So if you think about how I access my phone or how I access, my device, I'm using biometrics. So I'm using my fingerprint. I'm using a face screener. It's actually an easier way for me to access my phone or my device or my laptop because I don't need to remember a password. So I think we need to break this discussion point that says security is always going to be a hindrance. In certain instances, security actually makes you work faster. Yes, there is going to be areas where we're going to add friction into the system, but this friction is critical to keep you safe. So I think the first point of call is, we often think about the points of friction, the points where security is, asking us for an increased authentication or something to happen in addition to our normal work. But we also have to consider that there are many instances in which security makes our lives easier. And so we need to have that balanced discussion about both. You were talking about AI, and just the one point I wanted to make on AI before I go into culture is we're seeing the scale of attacks increase because attackers are now using AI technology. So if you think about someone trying to compromise me, they would need to go onto social media, they would need to go and have a look at my profile and try and find something that would interest me. Now, AI is allowing attackers to do that a lot more quicker. So for your example, with the cleaner or the person that's in your office, typically attackers would take a large amount of time, go for the biggest target, which is your CEO or your CFO or the business owner or the CIO. But actually, if you use AI today, you can actually scale attacks a lot faster. So we're going to see a lot more propensity of attacks. We're going to see increased scale of attacks. The second thing that we're seeing is that once attackers have data, to be able to go through that data and analyze that data and understand what they have to further scale an attack, that's happening a lot quicker. So people are stealing an enormous amount of email, using AI to go through that email and then creating really targeted attacks based on the data that they have. So from a culture perspective, it's super, super critical that every single person in an organization understands the risks that they're faced with. And I often like to say to people, if we can do just-in-time training. So, for example, when you're sending out an email, to have an alert pop up to say, do you actually want to send this to an external person? When you are when you have someone reporting an incident, to reinforce that message and say, oh, wow, you notified, our managed defense capability that we have an incident. Here's some credit for your good behavior. I think that those opportunities to really showcase that security can be helping you, that security is a part of the ecosystem, keeping you safe and keeping the business safe is so critical. And we have to seek out those opportunities to train people in the work that they're doing where it is applicable.
Yeah, I think training becomes so important, especially here in South Africa, because cybersecurity is relatively, compared to the rest of the world, relatively new. And it's something that we're still adjusting to, and using methodologies just like what the ones Carissa mentioned. I think that will bring a lot of incentive for people to be more secure or have cybersecurity mindsets in everything that they do. And I think the more conversations like these that we have, and the more we have people exposed to this, I think it will start to settle in people's minds to say, in actual fact, I need to take this seriously more than ever. It can go from as small as WhatsApp scams to as big as ransomware attacks. But as long as people are educated, and within organization, if you incentivize people for that, for being secure, I think it will grow a good spirit amongst people for them in that. Because I believe that, honestly, it should start in the home, in our separate homes, in our separate places. From my understanding, I know that both of you are family-orientated people. And there's a post that you mentioned, Chris. I think you were basically, it was during the Women's Month, and you were speaking on basically how supportive and amazing your husband is. And you also mentioned that in all of that, towards the end, you also mentioned that you want to become an example, to set an example for your daughter. As a mother who is in cybersecurity, to other mothers out there, it could be a mother who is doing a non-IT job. It could be a mother who is an exec. It could be a mother who is in HR. how do you think it is possible for them to set examples for their children just to be cyber aware? Because my personal belief is that the community, or rather the nation, is shaped by society, which is shaped by homes. So how the community or how the nation is a combination of how different homes are set up. How can that mother then educate herself, firstly, before she can educate her kids? What norms can they pick on, which are very easy, or traditions or cultures that they can pick on so that they can set examples for their homes?
Yeah, it's a great question. I always say, don't underestimate the power of the dinner side conversation. If you think about, a few years ago, we would be talking to children about safety when you're outside, and physical safety. So keep your money close to you. Keep your look both ways when you're crossing the street. Where our children and where our society and where our businesses are playing today is on the digital space. Yeah. So I think first of all, to parents, to people who are running businesses as well as running families, keep that curiosity there. Nobody has all the answers. So not even me, has all the answers on cybersecurity. I've spent my entire career, more than 20 years, in cybersecurity, and I don't have all the answers. So don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but have the curiosity to find out and have the open conversation. Make sure that you're very open with your children, with your staff, about the fact that they can come to you and have a conversation about, how do I do this safely? And if you don't know how to do it safely, at least go find out together. At least that channel of communication is open.
Yeah. I don't know, Obey, if you share the same sentiments on how we can deliver that message within the homes. It could be with our friends, it could be with our relatives, it could be that one aunt, it could be with everybody. How then do we share or spread that cybersecurity gospel?
Yeah, I love what you just said now on locking the doors, closing the windows, right? Because that's essentially what it is, right? Yes, it is on a virtual lens, but security is security. It's the same concept, just that it's targeting your data, it's targeting your processes, it's targeting your systems, right? So how do you then bridge or basically articulate that in a more physical world, right? So technically, the decisions that we make on a daily basis, to be more accountable to our daily lives, to our friends and families, to our colleagues, to ourselves in general, right? The health decisions that we make, it essentially boils down to taking ownership, right? Leading from the front, and as a man in a community, as a brother, as a father, I have a responsibility again to educate, and it's my responsibility to lift the people that I see are lacking, and that applies to my job as the head of IT at Redefine. I'm seen as the ambassador, as the first guy who shouldn't be compromised. Technically, I'm not expected to click on a malicious link. No. And again, these threats are getting more sophisticated. I make mistakes. I don't have all the answers. And it's about collaboration, right? Understanding that we in this thing together. Yes, there could be someone who might be expected to know by virtue of them playing a certain role. Yes. But at the end of the day, no house is built off one person. So we need each other as much as they need. I need them. So that's what it is. Yeah.
Now, I think honestly, to close this off quite well, looking into everybody's contribution. Looking into the contribution, we've just spoke about the contribution that we make in homes. What contributions can we make as cyber leaders, which will drive not only our organization, but cybersecurity as an ideology, as a topic forward, specifically in South Africa in the next coming few years? What contribution should I make as an MXDR manager What contribution should you make as a chief security advisor? What contribution should you make as a head of IT? What contribution should another make as an executive? What is it that cyber leaders should do to contribute forward, making sure that everyone, clients, homes, organization, government entities, we drive and grow the awareness, honestly, of cybersecurity in South Africa? I think after that we can close it off. I think, Obe, I'll start with you, then close off with Carissa.
Yeah, look, we all have a role to play. That's for sure. I believe that our role in the society is to be kind. It starts with kindness, right? If we can look at this as a challenge, right? If I can take it in a context of data, right? A South African private entity gets attacked almost 2,000 times a week, right? Sorry, that's for private. Yeah. So private companies are attacked almost 2,000 times a week. Yeah. And public entities, it's basically 3,000, if not more, slightly more, right? So you can only imagine how one person, one body, one entity will not be able to cap this all by themselves, right? So it's very important that we bring awareness, not just in a form of sharing within our silos, but again, expanding the community in such a way that cybersecurity becomes part of our culture. And in the very same summit that I went to, they say cybersecurity contributes about basically, and if it was to be measured in the form of a GDP, it's basically the third biggest economy in the world, right? So you can imagine this is after your China and your US. So you can only imagine how this thing is growing. So there is no way we would be able to manage it if we don't work as a collaborative unit. So that's basically what my sense is. And I read somewhere that some CISOs are basically afraid to reveal breaches within their organizations because, again, it paints them as not strong enough, not cyber strong. Essentially. So again, all I'm saying is, it's okay to face these challenges. We're all gonna face them. It's how we again resurrect once you've been attacked. So creating that safe space for people to speak about their challenges, learning from each other, I feel for me would go a long way. Yeah.
Carissa?
So I really like what you said around you touched on the part about partnership, and it really is an ecosystem. We all rely on each other. So if you think about any business entity operates on another, relies on another business to operate their own businesses. So there's a fragility in the ecosystem if we're not all protecting ourselves. So I think my ambition, and the reason that I still am based in South Africa, I operate in Africa, is because I'm passionate about this continent. I'm passionate about this country. And I believe that if we all operate in a more secure manner, we can all uplift each other. And exactly what you were saying, share that knowledge, share your expertise. No one single person has the full picture, has the full understanding of everything, but together with collaboration, and with sharing, we really can be very powerful. I do believe that AI coming in is going to tip the scales towards the defenders. I do believe we're going to get a level of, data insights and agility that we've not had before, and the ability to actually do things smarter with the reduced number of skills and people that we have, to really operate more efficiently in cybersecurity.
Carissa, Obey, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your light and guiding us into how better we can understand cybersecurity, MXDR as a service, and the different threat landscape. To those watching, cybersecurity looking into the future is an ever changing and ever evolving beast. And let this be a sign for you to take action now. Don't Jump onto it before it's too late. Don't wait for a breach to happen. Don't wait for you to hear about a scam or millions of dollars or reputational damage to occur in your company. In your company, what? In your own homes. Protect your children. Protect your family. Protect your organizations. Cybersecurity is here and it's now and it needs your attention. And thank you for joining us. This was the Nedscaper Podcast.